The uniform arrived folded in brown paper, smelling of starch and dust. Rose held it for a long moment before wearing it, as if it was something alive, something that could bite. She had imagined this moment many times during training. She thought she would feel proud, or powerful, or healed. Instead, she felt the weight. The elders say uniforms are like masks. They reveal what a person is willing to carry. When Rose buttoned the shirt and fastened the belt, she did not see protection. She saw responsibility sharpened into cloth. She saw a promise that could break her if she wore it carelessly. She stood before the mirror in her aunt's room and studied herself. The girl from Akonza was still there, but quieter, hidden behind posture and restraint. The woman looking back had learned how to lock her feelings behind her eyes. "Do not fail," Rose whispered, not to herself, but to the ancestors who watched without blinking. Her first year on duty taught her what the academy had not. The law, she learnt, was not a straight road. It was a marketplace, noisy, crowded, full of bargains whispered behind stalls. People came to the police station not for justice, but for advantage. Victims begged, perpetrators smiled, officers negotiated. Rose was assigned mostly to desk work at first. Reports, complaints, lost phones, domestic disputes that everyone pretended not to understand. She listened carefully, noting patterns others ignored. She learned how lies sounded different from fear. Sometimes she accompanied senior officers on raids. Sometimes they succeeded. Sometimes they arrived too late, intentionally or otherwise. Once, she watched a suspect walk free after a phone call from above. She clenched her jaw and wrote her notes anyway. At night, she dreamed of her father's calm eyes. Discrimination came dressed as humor. "Rose, you should smile more," one officer said. "Why are you always serious?" another asked. "You will never marry with that face," a third joked. She let the words pass. But when an accused man laughed at a frightened girl in custody, when Rose saw the familiar hollow look in the girl's eyes, something inside her hardened. She stayed with the girl through the night. She spoke gently. She did not touch without permission. She made sure the report was accurate. She pushed the case forward even when others wanted it buried. The girl held her hand and cried. That night, Rose went home and vomited. She did not tell anyone why. Years moved forward in uneven steps. Rose was transferred to Onitsha City, then later to Asaba, larger jurisdictions with heavier cases, armed robbery, fraud, political intimidation. Each posting revealed another layer of rot and another opportunity to choose differently. Her reputation grew slowly, like a tree. She doesn't take bribes. She doesn't talk too much. She doesn't forget details. Some officers avoided her. Some sought her out quietly. Her superiors noticed. When she passed the promotion exam on her first attempt, whispers followed her down the corridor. Who is backing her? She must know someone. Rose knew no one. She had learnt early that integrity, practiced long enough, begins to look like influence. It was during her 6th year of service that she was assigned to a joint task force investigating a string of organized crimes. Armed robberies that felt rehearsed, deliberate, clean. The criminals left little behind, no witnesses, no finger points. But Rose noticed something. "These are not random," she said during a briefing. "The timing, the locations, they are chosen." A senior officer frowned. "You think there's a central planner?" "I think someone is thinking for them," Rose replied. Some nodded, some dismissed her. But the file remained open. She began to sense a pattern she could not yet name, like a familiar scent carried by different winds. At night, she dreamed of masks. Promotion came again, and with it, responsibility. Rose was no longer just observing. She was leading small investigations, giving instructions, making decisions that carried weight. She struggled. Authority did not come easily to her. Every order felt like a test of her vow. She questioned herself endlessly. Am I becoming what I hate? Am I patient or afraid? Once, after a suspect died in custody under suspicious circumstances, Rose confronted a colleague. "This is wrong," she said quietly. He stared at her. "This is how things work. Not with me." The fallout was immediate. She was transferred again, this time to the capital, Abuja. Some called it punishment. Rose called it opportunity. Abuja was where masks were perfected. Here, criminals wore suits. Corruption hid behind paperwork. Evil learned how to speak politely. Rose adapted. She learned how to move through bureaucratic silence, how to read between lines, how to build cases slowly, brick by brick. She learned how to smile when necessary and how to watch without appearing to. And it was here, in a building filled with fluorescent lights and secrets, that she met Evans for the first time. He was leaning against the desk, laughing softly at something a colleague said. His uniform was immaculate, his posture relaxed but alert. He had the kind of face people trusted without realizing why. When he turned and their eyes met, something passed between them. Not attraction, not recognition. Recognition's shadow. Rose felt it like a chill. She looked away first. At the time, she did not know why. Only later would she understand that some truths announce themselves not with clarity, but with unease. And unease, once planted, does not die easily. Time does not heal by itself. It waits for courage. By her 10th year in uniform, Rose had learned how to make time work for her. She no longer rushed into rooms or raised her voice to command attention. She listened, she waited, she asked questions that sounded harmless and took notes others forgot existed. The younger officers watched her with a mixture of respect and confusion. She did not fit the stereotype of authority. She was not loud, not boastful, not cruel, but cases moved when Rose touched them. In Abuja, she worked under the Serious Crimes Unit, where files stacked like gravestones and justice arrived only after resistance. Armed robbery had evolved into something slicker, more calculated. Gangs no longer depended on brute force alone. They used information, timing, and protection. Protection from somewhere. Rose's instincts sharpened. She began to sense the presence of a single intelligence behind multiple criminal networks, a mind that stayed invisible by never stepping into the light. Evidence pointed in many directions and nowhere at once. Money trails ended abruptly. Suspects contradicted each other with rehearsed ease. "This is not street crime," she told her supervisor one evening. "This is design." He rubbed his temples. Design requires designers. Designers leave signatures. Only when they want to be known. The supervisor studied her. "You are chasing a ghost." "Ghosts still cast shadows," Rose replied. She paid a price for her focus. Friendships faded, invitations stopped. Colleagues found her difficult to read, impossible to manipulate. Some admired her, some quietly feared her. She lived alone in a modest flat. Her routine was spare: walk, sleep, early morning runs. On Sundays, she sometimes visited a small church near the river, sitting at the back where no one asked questions. Once, during confession, the pastor asked, "Do you hate anyone?" Rose paused. "I am careful with my hatred," she finally said. He nodded slowly, as if he understood more than he let on. Her path crossed with Evans again, this time intentionally. They were assigned to the same operation tracking illegal arms movement. Evans was efficient, well-spoken, and disarmingly polite. He treated junior officers with respect. He listened when Rose spoke. She did not trust him. Not because of anything he did, but because of how easily people trusted him. Still, professionalism demanded cooperation. They worked together often, late nights, long drives, shared reports. Evans never overstepped, never flirted, never pried. Gradually, she noticed small things. He remembered details. He asked the right questions. He never lost his temper. One evening, after a successful operation, they sat in the car, watching rain smear the city lights into colorless streaks. "You don't talk about yourself," Evans said casually. "There's not much to say." "There's always something." Rose glanced at him. "You first." He smiled faintly. "Maybe another time." It was an answer that revealed nothing and everything. Around this time, Rose reopened an old file. A village attack, armed gang, multiple deaths, no convictions. Akunza. She had avoided it for years, afraid of what memory might do to her discipline. But the pattern she chased now circled back to that night with uncomfortable familiarity. The weapons used then were similar, the precision, the escape. She requested access to sealed reports. Some pages were missing, others had been altered. Rose's pulse quickened. Someone had protected them. Someone with reach. She began to dig carefully off the books. She worked late, cross-referencing names, dates, and locations. She said nothing to anyone, not even Evans. Especially not Evans. Sometimes she sensed she was close. Sometimes the trail vanished entirely. One night, as she stared at her parents' names on a faded document, her hands trembled. Justice no longer was an idea. It was a wound that refused to scar. Evans began to appear outside work. At first, it was coincidence, coffee at the same stall, a shared taxi when rain trapped the city. Gradually, it became deliberate. "You look like you don't rest," he said once. "I rest when the work is done." He laughed softly. "Then you'll never sleep." Rose surprised herself by smiling. She did not fall in love quickly. Love to her was dangerous, another way to lose control. But Evans was patient. He did not push. He did not invade her silence. She told him pieces of her story, carefully edited: a village attack, dead parents, survival. He listened without interruption. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. She believed him. The task force case stalled. Evidence disappeared. Informants vanished. Orders came from above to redirect resources. Rose felt the old familiar rage stir. But now it was tempered by experience. She knew that storms did not always break walls. Sometimes they waited for doors. Evans was promoted. So was Rose. They celebrated with bottled drinks in a quiet bar where no one asked who they were. 10 years, Evans said, raising his glass. "You don't look tired." Rose studied him. "That's because I've learned how to carry weight." He watched her with something like admiration or calculation. She could not tell. Neither, perhaps, could he. Outside, the city breathed, unaware that two lives were circling each other, bound by history, lies, and a truth sharpening itself for the day it would cut. And in the silence between them, justice was learning how to wear a human face.